wake up exhausted, even after 8 hours of sleep. You scroll through your phone for 2 hours instead of doing that important project. You tell yourself you're just lazy, undisciplined, broken. But what if I told you that everything you've been taught about productivity is a lie? What if your so-called laziness is actually your soul screaming for something our hustle culture has completely forgotten? Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. We're living in the most connected, yet spiritually bankrupt era in human history. We've optimized our lives for output, not for meaning. We've turned ourselves into human machines, constantly producing, constantly consuming, never stopping to ask why we feel so empty inside. Your body isn't lazy. Your mind isn't weak. You're experiencing what I call spiritual starvation. Your soul is hungry for purpose, for connection, for something deeper than the endless cycle of tasks and notifications. When you can't get out of bed, when you procrastinate for hours, when you feel stuck in quicksand, that's not laziness. That's your inner self refusing to participate in a life that doesn't feed it. Today, we're going to fix that. We're going to feed your soul and watch your energy return like magic. Part 1. The Sacred Pause Ritual. You wake up every morning and immediately reach for your phone. Your mind starts racing through to-do lists before your feet even hit the floor. Sound familiar? Here's what most people don't realize about spiritual starvation. It begins the moment you abandon yourself to the chaos of everyone else's expectations. There's a secret that spiritually fulfilled people understand that the rest of us miss completely. They know something about mornings that changes everything. They've discovered a practice so simple, yet so powerful, that it literally rewires how they experience their entire day. Think about it. How many mornings do you actually connect with yourself before connecting with the world? How often do you check in with your own needs before diving into what everyone else needs from you? The answer reveals why you feel empty, despite being constantly busy. Most people treat mornings like a race against time. They're already defeated before they start. But what if I told you there's a 5-minute practice that could transform not just your morning, but your entire relationship with yourself? Here's the thing about spiritual starvation. It's not about lacking faith or missing some grand purpose. It's about disconnecting from the voice inside you that knows exactly what you need. That voice gets drowned out by notifications, demands, and the endless noise of modern life. The first way to overcome spiritual starvation is what I call the Sacred Pause Ritual. Instead of jumping into your day, create a 5-minute morning ritual where you sit in complete silence and ask yourself one question. What does my soul need today? Not what your calendar needs, not what your boss needs, but what your deepest self is craving. This isn't meditation or mindfulness. This is soul reconnaissance. You're gathering intelligence about your own inner landscape before you let the world hijack your attention. You're choosing to prioritize your spiritual needs before everything else tries to consume you. This practice will reveal things about yourself that you've been ignoring for years. Maybe your soul needs creativity, connection, or simply permission to slow down. Maybe it needs adventure, solitude, or the courage to speak your truth. You'll never know if you never ask. The Sacred Pause Ritual becomes your daily act of self-respect. It's proof that you value your inner world enough to check in with it. It's the foundation that everything else in your day can build upon. Part 2. The Energy Audit Revolution. You've been measuring your life all wrong. You count hours, track steps, monitor calories, and calculate dollars. But there's one metric that determines the quality of your entire existence, and you're probably completely unaware of it. Think about the last time you felt truly alive. Not just happy or satisfied, but genuinely energized from the inside out. Now think about activities that leave you feeling drained, even when they should be restful. There's a pattern here that most people never recognize. Here's what spiritually aware people understand that others don't. Energy is more valuable than time. You can have all the time in the world, but if you're spiritually depleted, those hours feel like prison sentences. You can be incredibly busy yet feel completely empty inside. The problem isn't that you lack energy. The problem is that you have no idea what feeds your energy and what destroys it. You're making daily choices that drain your life force without even realizing it. You're operating blind to your own spiritual metabolism. Most people optimize their schedules for efficiency. They pack more tasks into less time. They pride themselves on being productive, but they never ask the most important question. Is this activity making me more alive or more dead inside? The second way to overcome spiritual starvation is the energy audit revolution. Track your energy levels every hour for 1 week, but not in the way you think. Rate how alive you feel on a scale of 1 to 10 after every activity. You'll discover that some tasks drain your soul, while others feed it. This isn't about positive thinking or forcing yourself to enjoy things you hate. This is about gathering data on your spiritual nutrition. You're becoming a scientist of your own aliveness. You're learning what activities, people, and environments actually nourish your soul versus what slowly kills it. You'll be shocked by what you discover. That meeting you thought was productive might consistently rate a 3. That walk in nature you consider unproductive might consistently rate a 9. You'll realize you've been prioritizing soul-draining activities while neglecting what actually gives you life. The Energy Audit Revolution reveals your personal spiritual nutrition guide. It shows you exactly what to do more of and what to eliminate. Most people optimize for time. Spiritually awake people optimize for energy alignment. Part 3. The Reverse Productivity Method. Society has sold you a lie about productivity. They've convinced you that doing more equals being more. They've trained you to measure your worth by your output. But what if the key to spiritual fulfillment isn't about adding more to your life, but subtracting what's killing your spirit? You're probably exhausted, not because you're not doing enough, but because you're doing too much of the wrong things. You've filled your life with activities that look important, but feel meaningless. You've said yes to so many obligations that you've lost touch with what actually matters to you. Here's what most people don't understand about spiritual starvation. It often comes from spiritual pollution. Your soul gets clogged with meaningless busywork, empty commitments, and activities that serve everyone except you. You're not missing something. You're drowning in the wrong somethings. Think about your last week. How many hours did you spend on activities that made you feel more alive versus activities that made you feel dead inside? How many commitments are you maintaining out of habit, guilt, or fear rather than genuine desire? The third way to overcome spiritual starvation is the reverse productivity method. Instead of asking, "How can I do more?" ask, "What can I stop doing that's killing my spirit?" Identify 3 things you do regularly that make you feel dead inside, and eliminate them ruthlessly. Your laziness often comes from your soul's rebellion against meaningless busywork. When you're doing things that don't matter, your inner self stages a revolt. What looks like procrastination is actually your spirit trying to protect you from wasting your life on activities that don't feed your soul. This method requires brutal honesty. You need to examine your commitments without the filters of should, need to, or supposed to. You need to look at your activities through the lens of aliveness. What makes you feel more connected to yourself? What makes you feel more disconnected? The goal isn't to become lazy or irresponsible. The goal is to become selective about where you invest your life force. When you eliminate soul-draining activities, you create space for soul-feeding ones. You're not doing less, you're doing what matters more. The reverse productivity method transforms your relationship with time. Instead of filling every moment with activity, you start choosing activities that deserve your precious life energy. You become protective of your spiritual resources instead of squandering them on meaningless busy work. Part 4. The connection prescription. You can be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. You can have hundreds of social media connections and zero real connections. You can be in relationships where you never reveal who you actually are. This is one of the most common forms of spiritual starvation in modern life. Here's what most people don't realize. Surface-level interactions are spiritual junk food. They fill the space where real connection should be, but they provide no actual nourishment. They trick you into thinking you're socially fed while your soul slowly starves for genuine human contact. Think about your last meaningful conversation. Not small talk about weather or work. Not complaining about shared frustrations. A real conversation, where someone saw the authentic you and you saw the authentic them. When was the last time you had that experience? Many people mistake isolation for independence when they're actually dying from loneliness. They've built walls around their hearts in the name of self-protection, but those same walls keep out the very connection their souls desperately need. They're spiritually malnourished while surrounded by potential soul food. The fourth way to overcome spiritual starvation is the connection prescription. Spiritual starvation often stems from human disconnection. Schedule one genuine, unfiltered conversation per week with someone who sees your real self. Not networking, not small talk, soul talk. This isn't about having more friends or being more social. This is about having deeper connections with the people who matter. It's about creating space for conversations that go beyond the surface level. It's about being seen and known for who you actually are, instead of who you think you should be. These conversations require vulnerability. You need to share what's really going on inside you instead of just the highlight reel. You need to ask questions that go deeper than, "How are you?" You need to create space for real human connection instead of just social interaction. The connection prescription fills a spiritual need that nothing else can satisfy. Humans are wired for connection. When that need goes unmet, you feel empty, no matter how much you achieve or acquire. You can't substitute accomplishments for authentic relationships. Start with one person. Find someone who you trust with your real thoughts and feelings. Schedule regular time together, not to solve problems or accomplish tasks, but simply to connect, to see and be seen, to know and be known. Your soul will thank you for this medicine. Part 5. The creative metabolism hack. You consume content for hours every day. You scroll through feeds, watch videos, read articles, and absorb information constantly. But when was the last time you created something? When did you last make something that didn't exist before you touched it? Here's what spiritually starved people don't understand. Consumption without creation is spiritual indigestion. You're taking in massive amounts of input without producing any output. You're spiritually constipated. Your soul needs to express itself, but you've turned yourself into a passive receiver instead of an active creator. Think about children. They're constantly creating. Drawing, building, singing, storytelling, imagining. They don't worry about whether their creations are good enough or valuable enough. They create because creation is natural spiritual nutrition. Somewhere along the way, most adults lose this essential spiritual practice. You've been trained to believe that creation is only valuable if it produces money, recognition, or some measurable outcome. But that's not why your soul needs to create. Your soul needs to create because creation is how you participate in the ongoing miracle of existence. It's how you prove to yourself that you're alive. The fifth way to overcome spiritual starvation is the creative metabolism hack. Your soul needs to create something that didn't exist before you touched it. Spend 15 minutes daily making something with your hands or expressing something from your heart. Write, draw, build, cook, dance. Creation is spiritual nutrition.
This isn't about becoming an artist or starting a creative career. This is about honoring your soul's need to express itself. Every human being has creative energy that needs an outlet. When that energy gets blocked, it turns into frustration, depression, or a vague sense that something is missing from your life. The act of creation connects you to the creative force that flows through all life. When you make something, you participate in the same energy that grows flowers, forms mountains, and creates stars. You remember that you're not just a consumer of life, but a contributor to it.
Start simple. Write 3 sentences about how you feel. Draw a picture of something you see. Build something with your hands. Cook a meal from scratch. Dance to a song you love. The quality doesn't matter. The act of creating matters. Your soul knows the difference between creating and consuming. The creative metabolism hack transforms your relationship with yourself. Instead of being a passive observer of life, you become an active participant. Instead of waiting for inspiration to strike, you create the conditions for inspiration to find you. Part 6. The Seasons of Self. Philosophy. You push yourself to be productive every single day. You expect consistent energy, constant motivation, and steady progress. But you're fighting against your own natural rhythms. You're trying to force summer energy in your winter seasons, and it's exhausting your soul. Here's what most people don't understand about spiritual well-being. Your inner world has seasons, just like the natural world. There are times for growth and times for rest. Think about nature. Trees don't apologize for losing their leaves in autumn. Bears don't feel guilty for hibernating in winter. Rivers don't judge themselves for flowing differently in each season. But humans have somehow convinced themselves that they should operate at peak performance constantly. You've been taught that rest is laziness, that reflection is unproductive, and that needing downtime is a character flaw. But what if these natural rhythms are actually spiritual wisdom? What if honoring your need for different seasons is essential spiritual nutrition? The 6th way to overcome spiritual starvation is the seasons of self-philosophy. Just like nature has seasons, your soul has rhythms. Stop forcing summer energy in your winter seasons. Learn to honor your need for rest, reflection, and dormancy as sacred parts of your spiritual cycle, not character flaws to overcome. This means giving yourself permission to have periods of lower energy without judgment. It means recognizing that sometimes your soul needs to rest and rebuild rather than push forward. It means understanding that periods of introspection and stillness are just as valuable as periods of action and achievement. The seasons of self-philosophy requires you to pay attention to your natural rhythms instead of forcing artificial ones. When do you naturally feel more energetic? When do you need more solitude? When does your creativity flow? When does your body need more rest? These aren't weaknesses to overcome, but wisdom to honor. This philosophy transforms your relationship with productivity. Instead of judging yourself for having natural fluctuations in energy and motivation, you start working with your rhythms instead of against them. You become more effective by becoming more aligned with your natural cycles. When you honor your seasons, you stop depleting yourself through constant forcing. You start moving through life with more ease and less resistance. You discover that rest isn't the opposite of productivity. It's what makes sustainable productivity possible. Part 7. The meaning-making practice. You go through your days collecting experiences without processing them. Events happen to you, but you never take time to understand what they mean. You're living life without digesting it. You're spiritually malnourished because you're not extracting the nutrients from your own experiences. Here's what spiritually fulfilled people do differently. They don't just live their lives, they learn from them. They don't just accumulate experiences, they extract meaning from them. They understand that raw experience without reflection is like eating food without chewing. You can't digest what you don't process. Think about yesterday. What happened that made you feel most alive? What drained your energy? What surprised you? What frustrated you? Most people can't answer these questions because they're moving too fast to notice their own lives. They're experiencing life without processing it. The seventh way to overcome spiritual starvation is the meaning-making practice. At the end of each day, identify one moment where you felt most alive and one where you felt most drained. Write them down. Over time, you'll see patterns that reveal what feeds your soul versus what starves it. This practice turns your daily experiences into spiritual data. You're not just living randomly, you're learning what works for your soul and what doesn't. You're becoming conscious of the patterns that create aliveness or drain it away. You're developing spiritual intelligence about your own life. The act of writing these observations down is crucial. When you write, you move experiences from your subconscious mind to your conscious awareness. You transform vague feelings into clear insights. You begin to see the story of your spiritual nutrition unfolding day by day. This becomes your personalized spiritual nutrition guide. Over weeks and months, you'll notice patterns. Certain types of activities consistently energize you. Certain environments consistently drain you. Certain people consistently inspire you, while others consistently deplete you. The meaning-making practice helps you make better choices because you understand the spiritual consequences of your decisions. You stop making choices based on what you think you should do and start making choices based on what actually feeds your soul. This practice transforms random daily experiences into conscious spiritual development. Your life becomes a laboratory for discovering what creates aliveness and what destroys it. You become the scientist of your own spiritual well-being. Part 8. The Legacy Lens Shift. You're living your life according to someone else's definition of success. You're climbing ladders that are leaning against the wrong walls. You're achieving goals that don't actually matter to your soul. You're succeeding in ways that leave you feeling empty inside. Here's the uncomfortable truth about spiritual starvation. It often comes from living inauthentically. You're so focused on meeting external expectations that you've lost touch with your internal truth. You're succeeding at being someone else, while your authentic self slowly dies from neglect. The eighth way to overcome spiritual starvation is the legacy lens shift. Ask yourself, if I died tomorrow, what would I regret not having experienced or expressed? Then, start doing those things now, even in small ways. Spiritual starvation often comes from living someone else's definition of success, while your authentic self withers away. This question cuts through all the noise and gets to what actually matters to your soul. It bypasses societal expectations, family pressure, and cultural conditioning to reveal what maybe you'd regret not traveling to certain places, not expressing your creativity, not having deeper relationships, not taking more risks, or not speaking your truth more boldly. These regrets point to what your soul actually needs. The legacy lens shift doesn't require dramatic life changes. You don't need to quit your job or abandon your responsibilities. You need to start incorporating your authentic desires into your actual life. Take small steps toward what matters to your soul instead of only doing what matters to others. This shift transforms your daily choices. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" you start asking, "What would I regret not doing?" Instead of living according to external expectations, you start living according to internal truth. Instead of postponing what matters, you start prioritizing it. The legacy lens shift reveals how much of your spiritual starvation comes from living someone else's life instead of your own. When you start aligning your actions with your authentic desires, you begin feeding your soul instead of starving it. You start living a life that actually belongs to you. This isn't selfish. This is essential. When you live authentically, you bring your full self to everything you do. You become more alive, more creative, more generous, and more present. You stop depleting yourself by pretending to be someone you're not. Part 9. The boundary medicine. You say yes to everything because you are afraid of disappointing people. You overcommit your time because you don't want to seem selfish. You exhaust yourself trying to be everything to everyone. But here's what you don't realize. When you say yes to everything, you're actually saying no to yourself. Here's the truth about boundaries that no one tells you. They're not walls that keep people out. They're guidelines that keep your soul intact. When you lack boundaries, you become spiritually scattered. Your energy gets spread so thin that there's nothing left for what actually matters to you. Think about your current commitments. How many of them did you choose because you genuinely wanted to do them versus because you felt obligated? How many hours of your week are devoted to things that drain your soul but you can't say no to? The 9th way to overcome spiritual starvation is boundary medicine. Learn to say no to soul-sucking commitments without guilt. Your time and energy are sacred resources. When you say yes to everything, you're actually saying no to the things that would truly fulfill you. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're spiritual self-care. Boundary medicine requires you to value your own well-being as much as you value others' approval. It requires you to protect your energy as fiercely as you protect your physical safety. It requires you to understand that you can't pour from an empty cup.
This medicine doesn't mean becoming selfish or uncaring.
It means becoming selective about where you invest your life force. It means choosing commitments that align with your values and feed your soul rather than drain it. It means saying no to good things so you can say yes to great things. Boundary medicine starts with recognizing that your time and energy are finite resources. You only have so much to give. When you spread it too thin, you become less effective at everything. When you focus it on what matters most, you become more powerful in areas that align with your soul. The guilt you feel when setting boundaries is often conditioning, not conscience. You've been taught that saying no is mean, that prioritizing yourself is selfish, that disappointing others is wrong. But these beliefs keep you spiritually starved while trying to feed everyone else. Boundary medicine transforms your relationship with your own needs. Instead of treating them as optional, you start treating them as essential. Instead of putting yourself last, you start putting yourself first, so you have something valuable to offer others. Part 10. The Wonder Recovery Project. You've lost your sense of wonder. You walk through life on autopilot, barely noticing the miracles around you. You've become so focused on problems that you've forgotten how to be amazed. You've traded curiosity for cynicism, awe for anxiety, fascination for frustration. Here's what spiritually starved people don't realize. Wonder is spiritual food. When you stop being amazed by existence, you start dying spiritually. When you lose your capacity for awe, you lose your capacity for aliveness. You become spiritually malnourished from lack of wonder. Think about the last time you felt genuinely amazed by something, not impressed or entertained, but truly awestruck. When did you last feel that sense of mystery and magic that makes life feel worth living? For many people, it's been years or even decades since they felt genuine wonder. The 10th and final way to overcome spiritual starvation is the Wonder Recovery Project. Rediscover your capacity for awe. Spend time in nature. Learn something that fascinates you. Have conversations that challenge your thinking. Wonder is spiritual food. Most adults are malnourished from lack of curiosity and amazement about the world around them. Wonder recovery doesn't require dramatic experiences or exotic locations. It requires attention and openness. It means looking at ordinary things with fresh eyes. It means asking questions instead of assuming you know all the answers. It means approaching life with the curiosity of a child instead of the jadedness of a burnt-out adult. Start paying attention to what's actually happening around you. Notice how light moves through water. Consider how many processes had to align for the food on your plate to exist. Think about the complexity of a single conversation between two human beings. Marvel at the fact that you are a conscious being having thoughts about consciousness. The Wonder Recovery Project reconnects you to the magic that's always present but rarely noticed. It reminds you that existence itself is extraordinary. It helps you remember that you're part of something vast and mysterious instead of just an isolated individual struggling through problems. Wonder transforms your relationship with life from burden to gift. Instead of just getting through your days, you start experiencing them. Instead of being bored by routine, you start being amazed by the ordinary miracles that surround you constantly. This practice feeds your soul in ways that achievement and acquisition never can. It connects you to something larger than your personal concerns. It reminds you that life is not just about solving problems, but about appreciating the incredible mystery of being alive. The 10 practices we've explored together aren't just techniques. They're invitations back to your own soul. Each one addresses a different aspect of spiritual starvation that modern life creates. From the sacred pause ritual that reconnects you with your inner wisdom, to the Wonder Recovery Project that reawakens your sense of awe, these practices work together to create a complete spiritual nutrition plan. The beautiful thing about overcoming spiritual starvation is that it doesn't require you to change your entire life overnight. It requires you to change how you relate to the life you already have. It's about bringing consciousness to your daily experiences and making choices that feed your soul instead of drain it. Your spiritual well-being isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. When your soul is nourished, everything else in your life works better. You have more energy for the people you love, more creativity for your work, and more resilience for life's challenges. You stop just surviving and start truly living. Start with one practice that resonates most strongly with you. Give it a full week of consistent attention. Notice how it changes not just how you feel, but how you see yourself and your possibilities. Then gradually add others as they feel natural and sustainable. Remember, spiritual starvation didn't happen overnight, and spiritual nourishment won't either. Be patient with yourself as you rebuild your relationship with your own soul. Trust that small, consistent steps towards spiritual nourishment will compound into profound transformation over time. Your soul has been waiting patiently for this attention. It's time to answer that call and start living the spiritually rich life.